My name is Gary Maher, as was mentioned. I'm the Senior Sales Manager for Sage Active Planner. I've been with the product for my whole time here at Sage, so I've got a good background, which means hopefully I'll be able to give you a pretty good overview of the product and what it does and address your questions pretty well. So I will take you through. Again, what we're going to do here is we'll do a real brief overview of the product. We'll talk a little bit about it, and then we'll spend a good deal of time actually in a product demonstration. So we'll actually see the product, see how it does, what it does. So it's not just me telling you it can do things. You'll get to see how it does those things for yourself. Okay. And then questions and answers we'll try to arrange for some time at the end, and but we can also address some throughout if there's a particular screen or something that spurs a question. Sometimes it's easier to get those questions addressed while we're looking at that. So particularly while we're in the product demonstration, if I show something and the question's relevant to that particular screen, please go ahead and don't be shy and ask the questions then, and we'll try and get those addressed as we go along. So Sage Active Planner is, again, a very well-established planning and budgeting application. It was originally developed back in the mid-'90s. So, it's been around a while. It's had plenty of product releases since then, and updates and things along those lines. So it's a very vibrant product. We have customers worldwide on it. So we have small shops up to small countries, actually, that do their budgeting on Sage Active Planner. So indeed, there's actually some countries out there that do their budgeting with the product. So it scales up and down quite nicely, and that's one of the things you'll see about Active Planner that's one of its hallmarks, which is its flexibility and its ability to meet the needs of a wide variety of organizations and clients and things like that. It's an extremely popular application, and it's popular for a number of reasons, but really two in particular. One is its flexibility. It's really got good capability to adjust to your budgeting needs. So it's not rigidly structured where we're going to say you need to come in and adapt your budgeting structure to how the product operates. Rather, the product actually can adopt and adapt to how you're doing budgeting within your organization. The other big reason that it's extremely popular is its ability to link to a wide variety of data. Not only can we, as I already mentioned, get Active Planner link to your general ledger information regardless of the Sage GL you're on, but it can actually also link to all your other data sources as well, Sage, non-Sage, third-party, whatever, and bring all that information together in somewhat automated fashion. And that's particularly relevant in terms of time savings and helping us get better data. And we'll talk a lot more about that as we talk about product features and such. So again, the product's very popular throughout the world for a variety of different reasons. Those are some of the main ones. And we'll address some of the other ones as we look at the application here. So why are we talking budgeting? Why are we sitting here today discussing budgeting? Well, because everybody's got a budgeting process, as we know. You've got your own budget process. You've got things about that process. So every organization budgets. It's a pretty pervasive type of a task. If every organization budgets, and some budgets are more streamlined than others, but really, and everybody's got a need for the budget, and budgets have really evolved, meaning they've really stepped up in terms of important in an organization. I mean, even budget's kind of an old word. I mean, budgets have evolved more into planning. It's not budgeting as much as it's planning. And budgets used to be, and even a lot of times when organizations start out, still are, just strictly a means to control costs. We've got this much money. We want to make sure that at the end of the year we don't spend more than we have. So we're going to create a budget to make sure that we're just spending, we're living within our means. And certainly in a household type of thing, that's really where a budget is. But for most businesses that have been around for a while or of a significant size or things, budgets have certainly gone beyond that. They really are the roadmap for the business to achieve its strategic goals for that year. Budgets are, the layout of exactly how are we going to get from point A to point B. This is where we want to begin the beginning of the year. This is where we expect to end the year. How do we get from one point to the other? And that's a significantly different task, which is significantly more, of more importance than budgeting, and planning ever was before. So we've got a bigger need now to really address this task efficiently, and that's why we have applications such as Active Planner out there. Now the challenge when we look at budgeting is, everybody's got a different budget process. Every organization is different. Your budget's very unique to what you do within your own organization because your strategic goals are different. But the non-unique part about budgeting are the challenges. Everybody's facing the same challenges, even though your budget might look very, very different from everybody else. So, for example, everybody's budget, if you're not automated, your budgets generally tend to take too long. In fact, according to CFO magazine, the average budget process takes 4 to 5 months. Now, your budget might not take, quite that long, but certainly, does it take longer than 1 month? Does it take longer than 2 months? How long does your budget process take? Again, generally, when you start to think about that, it takes too long. I mean, certainly if it takes 4 to 5 months, when you think about how fast things change nowadays, that's way too long for an organization to put the budget together. Because by the time you start the process and finish the process, things are going to look drastically different anyway. What we really need to go to is a budget where we can create a budget and then maybe even update that budget quarterly. And to enable us to do that as organizations, we obviously need a budget that we can put together much, much more quickly. So we need to reduce the time. That's one of the challenges we see out there. The budgets are taking too long. They have numbers that aren't accurate. We have a lot of organizations I work with that, you have a budgeting process. You spend all this time to put the budget process together. We put these numbers together, and once you have them, you just kind of put them aside. Nobody ever looks at them again because they say, well, they're really not that accurate anyway. So, it was an exercise to put the numbers together, but really nobody's going to worry too much about them because they're never quite that accurate by the time the end of the year rolls around. Well, now not only we're spending a lot of time, but we're kind of wasting the time if we don't have a tool that we can use, as a management tool or something to work towards or things along those lines. So we certainly need accurate numbers throughout the budget process as well. So whatever time we invest is time well spent because we get numbers that are going to help us. We also need to reduce the cost in budgeting. If you think about that, if your process takes 4 to 5 months or 2 months or whatever, you think about who's involved in your budget process. It's management level on up to your CEO, right? So these are some of your better compensated people within your organization. So if we're spending a lot of their time on this budgeting process, we're spending a lot of our organizations on money on this process. So we need to reduce the cost of putting a budget together because, again, we want to streamline the time. We want better numbers. We want to reduce that cost so that we can do these budgets more often if need be and make them a much more useful tool. We've also noticed that another challenge organizations have is the ability to collaborate across your enterprise. To put a budget together, generally, we need numbers from our department heads, from people throughout our organization. We need them to be able to provide those numbers to us in an efficient way. And that can be a challenge. I mean, right now, a lot of organizations, I'm assuming most folks on this call are doing your budgets with Excel currently. And if that's the way you're doing it, then you're just kind of emailing out Excel spreadsheets to folks throughout your organization. Doing it that way requires that you're losing some control over your budget, and it can lengthen your budget process. So we need a better way to collaborate. And then we need to feed data back to people we get information from so that they see the relevance of that information. All I ever do is come and ask you for numbers, and you give me those numbers, and then you never see what happens with them. You're not going to be too concerned about those numbers that you give me because you really don't know what they're used for. Whereas if you see the relevance, we feed that back, we make you manage to those numbers, then you will see the relevance. You're going to provide better numbers. So those are all the challenges we see that are common across a lot of organizations. Those are all the things that Active Planner was created to address. So what is Sage Active Planner? Well, it's an enterprise-wide purpose-built planning and analysis application. What does that mean? It means it was designed to give control of the budgeting structure and methodology directly to the budget manager, while at the same time making it easier to get others involved from across your organization. And it does all that by doing the things that you see listed here on this screen. One of the key ways that Active Planner accomplishes all that is by the fact that we link into your general ledger. And what we do is we actually link to your general ledger on a database level, and this is how we start to automate your budget. We actually link to your general ledger information via ODBC or via more direct link, depending on the general ledger package you use. But we link to that general ledger information on a database level. That means when you use Active Planner for your budgets, there's no need to import your chart of accounts, your fiscal periods, or your account balances. All that information will be automatically available to you in Active Planner. In fact, one of the key things we try to do with Active Planner is eliminate the need to upload, download, or rekey information. And the fact we link to that data at a database level means that not only will you have no need to import your chart of accounts, but if you add a new GL account structure down the road, you decide to go add a new GL account number, well, we can automatically then have that new account number added into Active Planner as well. So all you need to do is enter it in your GL, and we can have it updated and added it to all the appropriate places throughout your budget at the same time. Also means there's no need to define your fiscal periods. Whatever you have defined within your general ledger, we'll define that with an Active Planner for you as well. And again, that there is no need to import your balances. All your actual budget and statistical balances will be automatically available to you with an Active Planner. And then when you're done with your budget values, we can export those budget values right back into your general ledger for you. And again, it varies depending on the different types, but we can put those populate those values back in your GL. See if you get your budgets and your actuals living right next to each other within your GL as well as within Active Planner if you'd like. So we link to your general ledger information on a database level, but we don't stop there. One of the other big advantages of Active Planner is the fact that we can link to all your other enterprise data via ODBC as well. So again, we can link to any ODBC compliant or OLED compliant database. So things such as APRA, FAS, SalesLogix, to name some other Sage products, but really any compliant application such as Excel or Access, third-party software, non-Sage products, whatever you might have that has information in it that you need to include into your budget environment, we can link to those different data sources, grab that information, and bring it into your budget for you. Again, the goal is to eliminate rekeying and eliminating the uploading and downloading of data. With Active Planner, we do also address and remember the often forgotten part about budgeting, which is analysis. And think about that. A lot of folks don't get time to do analysis at the end of your budget process because your budget process is so long. But really, if a budget's a means to help you achieve your strategic goals, you need to do some analysis on it when it's complete just to make sure it's going to be effective. And with Active Planner, we provide you with time back into your process so that you'll have time to do analysis. And we also provide you with an analyzer tool, a specific analyzer tool, that's going to allow you to take all your data, put it into OLAP cubes, and view that data graphically instead of just looking at numbers on a page. Really, again, the key is that Active Planner, it's a flexible planning solution. It's going to provide you with flexibility and control. And we can do that by doing all the things you see listed on this screen. And we'll actually talk more about these as we look at the application. So I'm not going to go into too much detail on any of these things, except I do want to mention the one down at the bottom. And note that one of the neat things that Active Planner also does is provide you with access to the budget environment via the web. So when we talk about getting people involved from across your organization, we can do that very effectively because, again, we can allow folks from across your organization to dial into the budget process via their browser. So instead of us sending things out to them, they dial in. I mean, think about your budget process now. If you're using Excel or something similar, what you do is you've got first a very dispersed set of data. Your data sources are all dispersed. You have to gather that data up, and that means you have to go out and upload, download data. You have to rekey some information as you bring the data together into your budget. If your source data changes, if numbers update, you have no choice but to go back out and redo that whole process. So you either need to re-upload and download, or you, at the very best case scenario, uploaded information into your budget environment. There's no real good, easy way to keep those numbers updated. Once you create those numbers and put all those numbers together, you build your budget in Excel. And once you build the budget, the very first thing you do with that budget is you tear it apart into little pieces and you email it out to all the participants across your organization. All right? You build the budget up, and the first thing you do is rip it apart. And when you send those little pieces out to folks across your organization, then you wait for them to come back. And when they do, then what you have to do is you have to, in essence, reassemble your puzzle. And a lot of times, those puzzle pieces don't look the same as what they look like when you send them out, because folks change information you didn't want them to change. You might change structural things, things along those lines. So now you need to rebuild that budget and then manually consolidate all your numbers and your information. With Active Planner, the process will be very different. Again, remember, we're going to have a centralized data source that links to all your different data sources. So when you want, current information within your budget, you simply refresh the data within your budget, and Active Planner will go out and get the current numbers for you. You create your budget the one time, the initial time, and now you have a budget that's going to serve you, because again, as you move that budget forward, you just update the information. When you need to get input from folks across your organization, you don't tear your budget up in little pieces. You keep your budget intact, and folks access that budget via the web, and they access only the appropriate areas for them. You've got tight security to make sure folks get only in the information they need, and they enter in the information they need. And when they do, as soon as they're done, you have access to that information, and you can automatically then consolidate that information, flow it up to the the uppermost parts of your budget whenever that's appropriate, because of the power within Active Planner. So much different budget process, based on basically from where you are now to where you could be within Sage Active Planner. Okay, let's go ahead and we're going to take a look at the application. We're going to jump over and take a look at Active Planner. Now, these are just some comments from some folks that have gone and used the application, just to give you an idea of some speed savings and things that folks have seen. As we go over to look at the application, keep a couple things in mind. First off, remember what I said about flexibility. Active Planner is extremely customizable. Now, I have to show you something, because it's a demo. You're going to want to see some things in the application. But keep in mind, all the sheets that I show you, all the examples I show you, can all be customized. So if I'm showing you a planning sheet and it doesn't look exactly like you would want it to look for your organization, that's okay. Because again, with Active Planner, the idea is that it will be customized to look and feel and read the way you want it to. So if your column headers need to be different, you need additional columns with additional information, things like that, that will all be able to be customized. So keep that in mind as I show you that I'm showing you examples of sheets, but they're not certainly the only way you'll be able to do things within the product. Also keep in mind we're going to start in the back end. So I'm going to start by showing you some tools that are only going to be used during your initial setup when we first set your budget up. And they're going to be used by a consultant helping you and such. And that's important because that's what's going to show you how the product does what it does. Once we see those tools, then we'll take a step back and we'll look at how we leverage them to make things as easy as possible for the budget team on an ongoing basis. And then we'll take a further step back and look at the web access and how we make it very easy for the department heads and people across your organization to participate as well. Okay, so this is Active Planner. This is the way the budget team and some of the power users throughout the organization might access the product. It's a full license type of access. It is an Outlook type of an interface. Our screen is divided into 3 panes. Our left-hand pane is our shortcuts pane. These are user-defined shortcuts, so each person that accesses the product this way can create their own shortcuts for areas they go to most often. That way they can access them with a single click. Our middle pane is our folders pane. And then when we select an item from the middle pane, we'll see details about the item on the right-hand side. If nothing's selected, we see kind of a standard desktop like we have here. I'm going to go ahead and select a plan. Before I do that, note that I've got a number of plans I can choose from here within my plan folder in Active Planner, in my demonstration environment. And that's one of the nice things we offer with Active Planner is you can have as many plans going at any one time as you'd like. So you can have history out there, historical plans. You can have multiple plans for a single budget year if you want to do a best case, worst case, most likely case scenario, things along those lines. Not really a limit to the number of different plans you can have going. So I'll go ahead and select the plan. And as I do that, up opens an area here on the right that we call Plan Manager. And Plan Manager is really the control center of Active Planner for the budget team. It's here where you get a great overall picture of your entire budget that you don't get right now if you're using spreadsheets or things like that with a bunch of tabs across the bottom. I mean, that shows you the name and number of different sheets, but it doesn't really show you how the sheets interrelate. With Active Planner, with Plan Manager, we actually get you a great overall picture of your entire budget and how all the pieces and parts fit together. And we provide you with that picture by giving you a hierarchical tree structure. And you get to create this tree structure simply by dragging and dropping all the individual sheets that make up your plan into the appropriate position on the tree. And so you take all these individual sheets, and we call them plan sheets, and you organize them to create the picture of your overall budget and how pieces relate together. As an example, if we look at the plan we have in front of us, you can see that this company arranges its budget in such functional areas as program summaries, product sales, department summaries. Underneath department summary, they arrange their budget departmentally: sales, marketing, design, facilities, IT. Underneath sales, they arrange their budget geographically: corporate, North America, South America, Europe, Asia. Maybe underneath some of these sheets, they want to arrange, they want to budget on a much more detailed level, a level, below GL account numbers or things like that. So maybe underneath these sheets, they have, compensation level sheets and such, so they can break out those line items on a much more detailed level. So hopefully you can see that we can go down as many levels as we need to accurately reflect the way you're doing budgeting within your organization. And this provides you with a great picture that shows you all the different levels of your budget and how all those pieces fit together. In fact, you even get a good idea of data flow from here, because you know that values that are entered down here on these compensation level sheets are most likely going to consolidate and flow up into the Sales North America sheet. That's going to join together with all these other departmental sheets and flow up into the Department 100 sales sheet, and so on. Okay. All right, well, let's take a look at an individual plan sheet to see how we start to gather all the great data that we include here in this. All right, this is a fairly typical plan sheet with an Active Planner. First thing you might notice is it does look a little similar to Excel. We've got rows and columns and support for all your standard formatting options such as rotated text, colors, font styles. All that fun stuff you have in Excel, you still have here, even down to and including cell formulas. And we include all of that for two reasons. One, to give you some familiarity. If there's tools that look and feel familiar to you, that's going to lessen your learning curve, and it's going to help people throughout your organization adapt to this product that much more quickly. Two, we give you those tools that you're familiar with to give you some assurance that no matter what, if there's something you're able to do now, at the very least you'll be able to recreate that using things you're already familiar with. But that's it. That's where the similarity with Excel ends, because this is not Excel. This is a built-from-the-ground-up budgeting tool that has much more unique capabilities within it for automating your budget than Excel will ever have. So let's take a look at what makes Active Planner unique. First, note our columns. With Active Planner, we create different columns according to the different functions that we want to accomplish. So we have budget columns because we want to bring in budget numbers. We have prior actual columns because we want to bring in prior actual column numbers. We can have forecast columns. So whatever type of data we want to have represented in a sheet, we can create those different types of columns. What we also do is in the background, we group similar columns together. So all our budget columns are part of a budget column group. And the reason we do that is so that we're able to apply things to them as a single entity versus having to apply things to all our columns individually. And you'll see how that works here shortly. Now, the rows in our sheets, map directly to our integrated GL account numbers or other data sources. And that's important because, again, Active Planner, we can budget on both GL and non-GL data. This particular sheet here, we're budgeting on GL account numbers. And you can see that even though we have a relatively small number of account numbers in this sheet, that if I double-click on this column, all our account numbers are available to me. So if you needed to add a new account number to this sheet, and this is because of the way we link to the GL account structure, if you needed to add a new account number to this sheet, you could simply double-click to look up, find the account number you want to add, and add that number in. Just that simple. However, once we create your budget, you shouldn't even have to do that. Because with Active Planner, we also offer something called sections. And with sections, what we do is we designate the different types of data you want within this sheet. So you have a salary section because you want to have some salary data. You have an expense section because you want some expense data. And once you designate the sections, then you get to designate the range or groups of account numbers that you want to have present in those particular sections. By doing it this way, not only is it easier to set up because we can just bring in a whole group of account numbers, at one time, but if you add a new account number to your general ledger down the road, sections will know if it falls within the range or group we've defined for the sheet, and can automatically add that new account number to all the appropriate places throughout your budget whenever you tell it to do so. This one feature here can be an immense time saver on an ongoing basis. Think about it. Right now, the only process you have, if you add new account numbers, you have to open up each sheet individually, look, see if the new account number belongs in there. If it does, figure out where, add it, go close that sheet, go on to the next one, and so on and so forth. This can all happen for you on an automated basis. Okay, with Active Planner, we also have full notation capability, so we can put notes in. We can put notes on a row level, date, time, user stamped, unlimited in nature. So we can put instructions, information, whatever we might want here. We can also put notes in on a cell level. These are date, time, user stamped, unlimited nature as well. When we have notes for a particular cell, this little red dot in the corner lets us know we have notes. All right, well, that leads us to the big question about budgeting, which is data. How do we get data into our budgets? It's really, the thing that's the most time-consuming, and it's really where Active Planner can have the biggest impact. So keep in mind, with Active Planner, we can do everything you can do now. So you can type in a number. You can copy that number across a number of columns using a fill option. You can use cell formulas to calculate values. Those are all manual methods, and those are all ways you have available to you right now. The real power of Active Planner comes from utilizing our calculation engine to automate the population of the data throughout your budget. So let's take a look at this calculation engine. If we open up the calculation engine, I'm going to first point out that there are some rows here on the upper left. These rows correspond to the different groups of columns we have in our sheet. Remember I said we had the ability to group our columns into column groups. We have a budget row because we have a budget column group. We have a prior actual row, we have a prior actual group. And with some year-to-date total rows because we have some year-to-date total columns. And the calculation engine is designed to apply one calculation per column group per row in our plan sheet. And we have three different types of calculations we can apply. First is an amount calculation. It's very straightforward. It allows us to simply type in a dollar amount. I'm going to type in 12,000. And then we can select the columns from this column group that we want to apply that dollar amount to from this little window over here on the right-hand side. So if we want to apply it to all 12 columns, we leave all 12 columns selected. If we want to budget differently for the first 6 months than the last 6 months, we can do that too. Once we decide the columns that we want to allocate this $12,000 out to, then we get to decide if we want to take that $12,000 and apply it to each column individually. So that we want to put a value of $12,000 in each and every column. Or do we want to take that $12,000 and spread it across our entire group of columns? If we want to spread it across our entire group of columns, we get to decide if we want to spread it out evenly. So do we want to put $1,000 into each column? Because we have 12 columns and 12,000 at the moment. Or more powerfully, do we want to spread that $12,000 out via the use of ratios? And if we want to spread it out via the use of ratios, we can base those ratios on last year's actuals. So if we were dealing with the office supply row here, like we have been, and last year we front-loaded our office supply expenses, so 50% of them happened in the month of January, well then 6,000, that 12,000 we just typed in will automatically get placed in the month of January, and the other 6,000 will get spread across the other 11 months based on the percent of office supply expenses they represented last year. And we can use actual budget or statistical values to create those ratios. We can even use plan sheet values, which means you can create your own custom ratio numbers as well. And we can go back up to 10 years prior to grab those numbers. So a pretty straightforward way to automate a pretty common budgeting task now. Now our second calculation method automates something that's even more common. And it's basically saying, well, look, we've got this great link to your general ledger data, database level link to your GL data. So let's take full advantage of that. So instead of us typing in anything, let's go ahead and populate our budget columns for our office supply row with last year's actuals. Go ahead and put in there what we actually spent each month on office supplies last year. And then let me adjust those numbers by a dollar amount or more commonly a percentage. So we've been told that we're going to be reducing our office supply expenditures this year by 7%, bringing what we actually spent last year on office supplies and reduce those numbers by 7%. Okay. So again, now we've got a very straightforward way to automate probably our most common methodology we use in budgeting. And again, we can use actual budget or statistical values here, and we can go back up to 10 years prior if we need to. So hopefully you're looking at these first two methods and you're thinking, wow, this is pretty cool. You know, we can automate the calculation of our budgeting here. And you know, most of our standard stuff we do throughout our budget. But maybe you're also thinking, but gosh, you know, a lot of the stuff that takes a lot of time is the non-standard stuff. You know, maybe you need to grab a value from your payroll software. You want headcount, that's over in your payroll software, and multiply that times the GL account value, and then you want to add that to something else. Or you want to have a column where your department heads say what percentage they think things are going to go up or down, and then you want to grab those numbers and apply them to some different values. Or, you know, maybe you have a value in an Excel spreadsheet that you need to grab and bring in and add that to something else. So how do we automate all those type of things? Well, we do all that with our third calculation methodology, our formula engine. And formulas are great. Formulas are mathematical equations that are going to allow us to bring together values from different sources and different periods of time. Keep in mind that right here is as deep in the product as we'll get, and then we'll start to show you how we leverage all these things. But formulas are very important for understanding the benefits you can get from Active Planner. So again, formulas are simply simple equations that are going to allow us to bring together values from different sources and different periods of time. So let's take a look at this formula engine. As I open this up, again, all I'm going to do is create an equation. And the formula engine provides me with a variety of ways I can introduce the values into that equation. First and foremost, I can bring in account values. And I can specify the time period I want to bring those account values in from. I can specify the company. If I need to bring values across company, I can bring values and budget values across companies. I can specify the balance type. So are they actual budget or statistical values? And then the account or range of accounts that I want to include those values in from. And I can even use masking if I want to make that part of my equation as well. Once I select the values I want on the first line of my equation, I simply join those to the next line of my equation with any standard operand. Add, subtract, multiply, or divide. As my equation progresses, I can use parentheses to control the order of processing. Now I can also introduce values in this equation I'm creating via the use of constants. So I can type in a number to represent interest rate or inflation, things like that. One common use of these first two line types is I've had a lot of folks that say, well, look, we don't budget on last year's account values. We budget on an average of our last 3 years' account values. Can you do that? The answer is sure, we can do that. Bring in your last 3 years' account values, prior 1, prior 2, prior 3. We add them together, and we divide by a constant of 3. And maybe we even multiply that by a constant of 1.1. And now we've just created an equation to bring in the average of our last 3 years' account values, increase it by 10%. So hopefully you can start to see the power of what we can do here within this formula engine. But the power of this goes well beyond what we've already looked at, because we can also introduce values in this equation we're creating via the use of database and linked server queries. What does that mean? That means now I can go out to any open data source on your system and grab a value that we need and bring it into this equation. Remember how I talked about eliminating the need to rekey and upload, download data? Well, here's where we start to show that. Because I can go out to any OLED compliant or ODBC compliant database, look into that database, grab the data I need, and bring it back. So I can look into Excel, Access, third-party software, other Sage products, non-Sage products, wherever you have data housed that you might need. We can look into that data, grab the piece of data we need, and bring it back. Not only that, we can limit the data we're bringing back with standard SQL queries. So now we can use select statements and other things on that data as well. So we can be very selective in terms of the data we bring back, a whole nother level of power if you're familiar with SQL queries. And finally, we can introduce values in this equation we're creating by grabbing them from other locations in Active Planner. So now if you want to calculate a value for one purpose and use it to calculate something else, you can do that. If you want to have a column where your department heads enter in some numbers and then you grab those numbers and use them to calculate a whole bunch of other values, you can do that as well. If you want to have a global assumption number where you establish a number on the uppermost level of your plan that you're going to use in all your department level plans, you can establish that number one place and automatically pull it into all the other sheets so you only ever have to update it one place. So hopefully, again, you can start to see the power of this formula engine. I mean, formulas can be very simple. They can be one line where we go grab a value from an Excel spreadsheet and bring it back, or they can be multiple lines. It really just depends on the needs of your budget. Now, the great thing about formulas, if you're thinking, well, gee, am I in there all the time? No, the thing about formulas is once we create them, we save them. So remember, I said we were going to start with a bunch of tools that are only going to be touched initially, and they're only going to be usually touched with the consultant that helps you implement this product. So when we come in to put the software in, we're going to help you create formulas, and you're going to have all these formulas. Once they're created, they're saved. So you just have existing formulas, and you can use them over and over again throughout your budget. The nice part about this is, let's say something in the way you want to calculate this value changes. You can now open up this formula, make a change, and now everywhere you've used this formula is now updated. You don't have to go back into 50 different Excel spreadsheets, open them up individually, update each and every cell formula by itself. You can update one place and have it update throughout your entire plan. All right, well, now let's take that first step back and see how we leverage all this. You've seen the power of the product. You've seen how we're able to do what we do. So now let me show you how we leverage that to make things as simple as possible for you on your budgets on an ongoing basis. So let's pretend we're all the same company and we have this great budget. This is what we've created. And now we're looking at it. We all agree it's great, but it's time to start a new budget cycle. So the question is, how do we move our budget forward? How do we start a new budget? Do we have to, update all those formulas individually? Do we have to start from scratch? What do we need to do? And the answer is we need to do very, very little. There's a little tab over here in the corner we haven't looked at yet. We've been in the planning area, and there's a little tab called the main tab. And on this main tab are some other things, one of which is called base date. And the power of the base date is simple. All of our columns and all of our group dates are linked to that base date. In addition, all those formulas and calculations we just created, which are linked to our general ledger data systems or ERP data systems, they're linked to that base date as well. Remember, I never put a date in those formulas. I put prior 1, prior 2, or prior period 1. So what tells all those formulas what the current date is that it's basing everything off of? The base date does. So in essence, when you're ready to start a new budget cycle, you want to now budget 3 months ahead or 6 months ahead, or you want to start a new budget year, maybe you want to budget for 2012 now, all you need to do is change that base date, and you can, in essence, pick your entire budget up and move it forward. Active Planner will go out and grab all the new data, redo the calculations, and move the budget forward for you. So if we were budgeting for 2012, all your prior actual columns would update to read 2011. They would populate with 2011 data automatically. 2012 columns would populate with values wherever we've got calculations. So maybe we had said here, take last year's plus 10%. Now I'm going to go grab 2011 values, increase them by 10%, and populate them for us. So really, to move the budget forward, the only thing you should have to do is get any user inputted data that might be required by your budget. So you can move this budget forward and have an almost fully populated budget. All you need to do now is grab whatever numbers you need to have provided by folks, and that budget will be done and complete. So let's take a different scenario. We now can roll our budget forward. Let's try the different scenario. We've got this great budget. We've got we're moving forward now. We're updating it quarterly. We've got an annual budget. We're doing quarterly forecasts. We've got all these great things going on, and we show it to somebody and say, what do you think? And they say, well, great. That's one of the best looking budgets I've seen in a while. However, what if we spent more money over here? Or what if we took in more revenue over here? Aha, so they want to do what if scenarios. Well, one of the other nice things about Active Planner is every time you make changes to a sheet such as this, you have the option to save it as a new revision. And you can save an unlimited number of revisions. And you do that over here on the main tab. So you can, in essence, save, do an unlimited number of what-if scenarios. So I'm going to call this revision 3 because we've made some changes while we've been in here. And now that I've established a new revision, it's going to allow me to compare one revision to the other to see what's changed. So I go up here to my revision comparison tool. It says, okay, you're opening up revision 3 because that's what you're in. What revision do you want to compare it to? And it shows me a whole list of my other revisions. I only have 2, but if you had a whole bunch, you'd see a big long list. So I said, well, I'm going to compare it to revision 2 because that's the one we started with. So I can go in here now, and it's going to open up revision 3. But what it's going to do for me now is it's going to highlight for me in yellow everything that changed from one revision to the other. So if you remember, I manually entered the number 44,444 when I said we could manually enter data. It obviously affected some other numbers that I may or may not have been aware of, but now I most certainly am. If I don't remember what the number was before, no problem. I just hover my mouse over and it shows me. The number was 22,222. It's now 44,444. So I can go down and see, do I like the effect of my changes? If I do, I just keep this revision, and it's going to be my active revision, so it's what's used going forward. If I don't, I can go back at any time and pick a previous revision and make that my active revision to use going forward instead. It's also a great tool if you want to keep track of just changes that certain users make. Kind of like an audit tool. We can go back and say, well, look, give everybody their own revision, and then I can compare with the original revision and see what you changed, if you changed anything. Okay, a couple other things to keep in mind. We do have full security, so we can very tightly control who sees what information, who has access to what information. So within this sheet, I can, I set up all the users with usernames, passwords. When we do that, we can decide what permissions they have. Can Bob update formulas, things like that. But then within our plans and sheets, we can go back and decide, well, look, Bob has no access, or He's a reviewer, so he can look but not touch this particular sheet. Or he's a planner, so he can actually make changes to the sheet. But even if I make Bob a planner, I can control down to a cell level what he can and cannot change. So very tight security control who sees what information. All right, let's check out a different sheet so we can see a little bit of different information. We've been looking at that one for a while. So let's go over here and we'll look at a different type of sheet here. So I'm going to open up this sheet. This sheet is very different from the one we were just looking at because we are no longer budgeting on GL account information. I'm now budgeting based on employee ID numbers. And this is one of the nice things about Active Planner is you can budget again on anything that you want. You simply tell Active Planner in this little folder here if you want to budget on something other than GL account information. So yes, I want to budget on employees, or I want to budget on projects, or I want to budget on salespeople. Once you do that, you just say, okay, and point Active Planner to where that data is, where those data tables reside. That's really all it needs to know. Once you point it to the data tables, then you tell it what information you'd like out of those tables. So in this instance, I want employee ID number, name, hire date, things along those lines. Once you do that, that's set up, and now I can use this over and over again throughout the budget. So I can have it in sheets like this. I can also now treat this information just like I do GL account information. So in essence, I can create a section like I have in this sheet where I said bring in all the employees for this department and this location. Now if I add a new employee to my payroll software, nothing to do with our GL software, but the payroll software, I can actually have Active Planner automatically go out there, know that we've added that employee, and add it to the appropriate places for me whenever I tell it to do so. And you can see we can structure data interaction, again, any way you'd like. This one, we brought in a global assumption number where somebody up above says our standard increase is going to be 4.5%. This company that this is created for has contract employees, so they want the ability to enter in termination dates for when the contracts expire, so that they, in those appropriate months, stop getting that salary burden. And they want to give their managers the ability to override some things. We can structure this data interaction any way you want. In fact, if we got new hires and we want something a little more flexible where we just type in the title and the salary and when expected start date so that we can accommodate new hires, we can do that as well. Good. All right, let's take that one more step back and see how, we've seen the power of the product. We've seen how we can make things easier for the budget team. Let's see how simple we can make this for your department heads to participate in the budget process. If you remember, I said that they were going to participate in the budget process via the web. They would simply use their browser, and they would browse to the appropriate site on the internet or the intranet. Okay? If you want to keep it internal, you could do that. But again, they simply access the product via the web. Web-based access is just like our full access, except web-based users cannot make structural changes to plan sheets. They can't create new sheets or delete columns or things like that. They can enter data and view information, which is what the bulk of the people in our organization need the ability to do. So they come into the web access, they enter in their username and password. And Sam, I'm going in as a department head named Sam. Sam is head of one department in our organization. He is now logging into the same plan we're just looking at. Got hundreds upon hundreds of plan sheets in it, right? But because Sam is the head of one department, he doesn't need to see those hundreds upon hundreds of sheets. He only needs to see the sheets that apply to his job and what he needs. So as Sam logs into WebView, indeed, all that he sees are the two sheets we've given him access to. All the other sheets are there. He's looking into that plan. We haven't split these off and sent them out to him. We've just restricted his view and his access to what he needs to see. So he sees those two sheets. He knows he needs to start providing some budget data. He clicks on the first sheet. Opens up that sheet. It's in a format that's very familiar to Sam. We've got rows and columns. Should have very little training required for Sam because he should be very comfortable with how this works. We could put some instructions up top if we want. Enter values in white fields. Gray fields are locked down, so that he knows he can't change values in gray, and that we want him to fill in anything that's left white. Sam can come in here, enter in this information. Once he does, once he goes through and enters all the information, I fired up on month 1, so we have no salary burden there, but once he enters in all that information, he just simply closes out of here, saves it, and we'll have immediate access to the data and can flow that data up that plan tree. We could even have a status code attached to this that Sam would update when he's done that says complete, and that would fire off an automatic email to Sam's boss saying this sheet's updated and is ready for your approval now, or whatever else we want that to do. Okay. And keep in mind now that we've got this data from Sam, and it's just that easy or simple on the end user perspective, because that's really what we want. We want it to be very straightforward. Once we have that data, and it's entered down here on these compensation level sheets, we can now just flow that data up automatically. As a manager, we can go up here and we can select this and say, well, look, I need to consolidate all the information from all the sheets. Go ahead and consolidate all the numbers now and flow them up to the top of my plan. When you're done with your budget, you can publish this data to publish data tables, so you can report straight out of Active Planner. You can create sheets on the uppermost level that serve as reports, provide you with all that summary data. You can export this, as a HTML document or save it as Excel if you want to send it out that way. And remember, you can put your data into data cubes and view your data now in Excel pivot tables or in our Analyzer tool and look at it all graphically.